Most people do not have shoulder surgery because they want a better examination. They have surgery because they want their life back. They want to sleep without planning every position. They want to get dressed without thinking through every movement. They want to work, drive, travel, exercise, garden, play golf, care for their home, and reach into a cabinet without wondering whether the shoulder can handle it. That is the real goal. But there is a difficult part of recovery that many people do not expect. The surgery can appear successful, the repair can be healing, your appointments can be going reasonably well, and you can still feel as though the life you expected has not returned. I'm Dr. Dan, an orthopedic surgeon specializing in shoulders. Now, this is where people lose progress. If you don't understand this phase, you can make the wrong adjustment at the wrong time. That's why you need the Shoulder Recovery Guide. Its link is in the description below. The misconception is easy to understand. You assume the surgery corrected the main problem. You follow the restrictions. You attend therapy. You wait for the tissues to heal, and eventually normal life should restart. That is not an unreasonable expectation. Surgery matters, healing matters, physical therapy matters, following your medical instructions matters. But those things do not answer every recovery decision that appears in the middle of an ordinary day. They do not always tell you how to respond when the shoulder feels stronger but still unfamiliar. They do not tell you whether hesitation means the arm is not ready or whether you have simply lost trust in it. They do not tell you what to do when one activity feels fine on Monday and uncomfortable on Wednesday. They do not tell you whether to continue, pause, adjust, ask for help, or wait and watch the pattern. Those decisions influence whether medical recovery becomes real-life recovery. That distinction is important. A successful operation creates an opportunity. It does not make every later decision for you, and when people do not understand that, they may spend months waiting for confidence and function to arrive automatically. Consider what happens when you try to return to a simple household task. You want to put a stack of plates into a cabinet. The plates are not unusually heavy. You may have been cleared to use the arm more, but the cabinet is slightly above shoulder level and the movement feels awkward. You hesitate. You decide to use the other arm instead. That decision may be entirely reasonable on that particular day. The problem is not one cautious choice. The problem begins when every uncertain movement gets the same response. You avoid the cabinet again tomorrow. You ask someone else to put the dishes away. You stop reaching with the recovering arm. The movement remains unfamiliar because you rarely attempt it. Then when you finally try again, it still feels awkward. The awkwardness seems to confirm that the shoulder is not ready. A temporary workaround becomes a pattern. The pattern becomes a limitation. And eventually the limitation starts to feel like the final result of the surgery. This is how recovery can drift. It usually does not fall apart because of one dramatic decision. It drifts through dozens of small choices that seem harmless in isolation. Rest a little more. Avoid one more activity. Delay trying something until next week. Use the other arm again. Cancel the outing. Wait for the next appointment. None of those decisions feels large enough to change the outcome. But together, they shape how you move, how much you trust the shoulder, and how much of your life you are willing to reclaim. So the real question becomes, do you keep waiting for normal life to return, force the shoulder into activities because enough time has passed, or examine the daily decisions that may be keeping you stuck? Those are very different responses. Waiting may feel patient and responsible, but waiting without understanding what you are waiting for can turn caution into passivity. Forcing the shoulder, because the calendar says you should be further along, can create new soreness, frustration, and confusion. Examining the decisions requires more thought. You have to ask whether the barrier is a medical restriction, pain, weakness, stiffness, fear, unfamiliarity, or a habit that developed earlier in recovery. That is difficult because most people are not given a consistent way to separate those possibilities. Your surgeon may tell you what the repair can tolerate at a particular stage. Your therapist may guide your exercises and movement progression. But neither person is beside you for the rest of the week. This happens between appointments when no one is watching recovery moment by moment. Your surgeon and PT may be helping, but they are not with you for daily decisions. No one is really guiding you through this part. They are not in the kitchen when you decide whether to reach for the plate. They are not in the bedroom when you wake up with more soreness and wonder whether you should change everything you planned that day. They are not in the car when you question whether the shoulder is ready for a longer drive. They are not beside you when someone hands you a grocery bag, when you pull open a heavy door, or when you consider returning to a hobby that has been missing from your life for months. Most recovery happens during those unsupervised hours. That is the 166-hour void. You may spend a small portion of the week in therapy or at a medical appointment. The rest of the time, you are interpreting the shoulder on your own. You are deciding whether a symptom matters. You are deciding whether an activity is appropriate. You are deciding whether to increase, reduce, continue, stop, ask, or wait. And those decisions are rarely made with complete information. Some are based on fear, some are based on impatience, some are based on what another patient said online. Some are based on a good day that created too much confidence. Others are based on a bad day that created too much caution. This is not because patients are careless. Most patients are trying very hard to follow the rules. The problem is that the rules usually cover the major boundaries, not every situation that appears in real life. You may know that you should not lift above a certain amount, but what about holding a light object away from your body? What about reaching into a sleeve? What about pulling a blanket into position? What about opening a refrigerator door? What about carrying something light for several minutes? What about a movement that is technically allowed but still feels strange? The printed instruction sheet cannot list every possible moment, so people fill in the gaps themselves. And when the gap is filled with guessing, recovery can become inconsistent. One day you protect the shoulder from almost everything. The next day, frustration takes over and you do far more. Then the shoulder becomes sore. The soreness makes you pull back again. That back and forth pattern makes it difficult to understand what the shoulder is actually telling you. You cannot tell whether the activity was inappropriate, whether the amount was too much, whether the soreness was expected, or whether the reaction was simply part of doing something unfamiliar. Without a framework, the loudest feeling in the moment controls the decision. That creates a larger problem than temporary soreness. It weakens confidence. You stop trusting your own judgment. Every decision starts to require reassurance. You wait until therapy to ask whether the movement was acceptable. You wait for the surgeon to confirm that the shoulder still looks fine. You feel better after the appointment. Then another uncertain moment appears at home, and the doubt returns. The reassurance may be accurate, but reassurance is not the same as a repeatable decision process. Reassurance tells you that things appear acceptable now. It does not automatically teach you how to think through the next unfamiliar situation. This is where the emotional weight of recovery begins to grow. At first, the frustration may seem minor. You are tired of needing help. You are tired of planning around the shoulder. You are tired of sleeping poorly and moving cautiously. But as the weeks continue, the frustration can become more personal. You may wonder whether the surgery was worth it. You may worry that you waited too long, chose the wrong procedure, or failed during recovery. You may look at other people and assume they recovered more easily. You may stop talking about your concerns because everyone around you believes you should be better by now. The people in your life may see that the sling is gone. They may see that you can move the arm. They may hear that the surgeon is pleased. So they assume the difficult part is over. But your life may still be organized around the shoulder. You may still choose clothing based on how easy it is to put on. You may still avoid sleeping in your bed. You may still ask for help with ordinary tasks. You may still hesitate before making plans because you do not know how the shoulder will feel. You may still feel anxious before therapy, before travel, or before returning to work. That mismatch can feel isolating. The outside world sees progress. You feel limitation. The medical report says the shoulder is moving forward. Your daily life still feels restricted. That is the clinical versus life success gap. Clinical success may mean the repair is intact, the wound has healed, the motion is improving, and no obvious complication is present. Those are meaningful achievements, but life success asks different questions. Can you sleep comfortably? Can you dress without fear? Can you manage your home? Can you return to work without constantly protecting the arm? Can you travel without planning every movement around the shoulder? Can you return to the activities that made the surgery worth doing? A clinically acceptable result does not automatically answer those questions. The shoulder may be medically stable while you still feel functionally uncertain. And when that gap is not recognized, people often choose one of two explanations. They assume the shoulder has failed, or they assume they have failed. Neither explanation may be accurate. The missing piece may be the way recovery decisions have been handled between visits. Here is another home life example. You had surgery because you wanted to return to gardening. Months later, you can move the arm better and your appointments suggest steady progress. But when you walk into the yard, you see a series of decisions. Can you lift the watering can? Can you pull a weed? Can you reach forward? Can you use a small shovel? Can you work for 10 minutes? Can you work for 30? You don't know which question matters most. So you either avoid the garden completely or try to do everything you used to do. Avoiding it protects you from uncertainty, but keeps you disconnected from the outcome you wanted. Doing everything at once may create soreness that makes you question the entire recovery. The activity itself is not the only issue. The issue is that you do not have a clear way to scale the decision, observe the response, and interpret what happened. The decision is not simple. Do you accept the limitation as your final result, push harder without understanding the pattern, or change how you interpret and respond to recovery between appointments? Accepting the limitation may prevent disappointment in the short term, but it may also cause you to settle for less than the medical recovery could support. Pushing harder may feel decisive, but effort without interpretation can produce another cycle of soreness, fear, and retreat. Changing how you respond requires a system. You need a consistent way to judge what the situation means and what to do next. Most people do not have a consistent way to judge what this means or what to do next. That is the system gap. The system gap is not solved by collecting more random advice. More advice can create more conflict. One person tells you to protect the shoulder. Another says you need to push. Someone online says their recovery took 3 months. Someone else says theirs took a year. A friend says pain is normal. Another person says pain always means you should stop. The more opinions you collect, the harder it may become to identify which information applies to the decision in front of you. The problem is not a lack of information. The problem is the lack of a repeatable way to interpret information. A useful framework would help you examine the context. What activity were you doing? Was it inside the boundaries provided by your medical team? What changed during or after the activity? Was the response immediate or delayed? Was it a familiar sensation or a new pattern? Did it settle, remain stable, or continue increasing? What decision did you make next? Without a consistent process, every symptom becomes an isolated event. Every event feels unpredictable, and unpredictable recovery is difficult to trust. That is how someone can complete the expected medical steps and still feel unprepared for normal life. They followed the appointments, they completed the exercises, they respected the major restrictions, but the hundreds of smaller decisions were made reactively. Recovery does not fall apart all at once. It drifts. It drifts when uncertainty leads to avoidance. It drifts when frustration leads to doing too much. It drifts when each new sensation causes a different reaction. It drifts when confidence depends entirely on the next reassuring appointment. And it drifts when a person assumes that time alone will transform medical healing into practical independence. This does not mean every limitation is caused by decision-making. Some shoulders remain stiff, some remain weak, some recover more slowly because of the injury, the procedure, general health, or other medical factors. Those issues belong in conversations with your own medical team, but even when physical limitations are present, you still need a way to interpret them. Otherwise, you cannot tell which part of the limitation needs medical attention, which part needs patience, and which part may be reinforced by the decisions you are making at home. The shoulder recovery method is a structured way to think through recovery decisions. Think of it as an insurance policy for avoiding mistakes that happen when you are guessing between appointments. The goal is not to replace your surgeon or therapist. It is not to create a new rehabilitation plan. It is to recognize that the outcome you wanted from surgery depends on more than the procedure itself. It depends on how medical guidance is translated into ordinary life. That is the part most people underestimate. They think the operation is the main event and everything after it is simply compliance. But recovery is not passive. It is a long sequence of interpretations and adjustments. The shoulder feels different. You assign meaning to that feeling, you make a decision. The decision affects what happens next. Then you interpret that result. When that sequence is reactive, the outcome can drift away from the life you expected. When the sequence is more consistent, you begin to see patterns instead of isolated threats. You begin to understand why one day is different from another. You begin to ask better questions at your appointments. You begin to separate medical restrictions from fear, weakness, unfamiliarity, and frustration. That does not guarantee a perfect outcome, but it changes the way you participate in recovery. So, if your shoulder appears to be healing, but your life still feels incomplete, do not assume that the only options are to wait forever or push harder. Look at the decisions happening in the gap. Look at the moments when you avoid, overdo, freeze, or change direction without understanding why. Look at whether you have a consistent way to interpret what the shoulder is telling you. Because surgery may repair the structure, but it does not automatically restore trust, confidence, independence, or the routines that made you want surgery in the first place. Those outcomes are shaped during the hours when no one else is making the decisions for you. And if you want to understand the common mistakes that can quietly interfere with shoulder recovery, watch Mastering Rotator Cuff Recovery by Avoiding 5 Mistakes. The link is in the description below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next Thursday.